Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another one of our Sacred Sexuality EDU class videos. So originally, when I had posted about what this month's presentation was going to be on, I had planned on going through and teaching how to create a Semper astrological talisman for sex magic work. So I did get a couple of emails, and I love it. I love it because I think that this series is wonderful, but every series I do should have meat and potatoes. And I think I have been focusing on very large meat portions for the last several months, really throwing out some really heavy information. And certainly, crafting, curating astrological talismans it's very, very heavy, very loaded. And so I was simply asked if maybe I could just share some more simpler, basic potatoes servings. And so that's what I decided to do this month. So we're going to save astrological talismans until after Samhain. And I think this month and next month, I'm just going to focus on sharing some very simple, do it yourself, affordable, easy, spell crafting recipes and formulas with you because I've given you guys tons and tons of meat. So I want to do some potato servings, definitely. And I appreciate that kind of feedback because I'm kind of just operating in my own lane here. And so I love feedback like that because then it helps me kind of curtail the program to what your guys' needs are. So this month, I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint in a minute. I basically have about 24, 25 recipes and rites, very simple and basic, I'm going to share with you. And I'm going to do the same thing next month. So I did part one today. We'll do part two next month. And it is sex magic focused. But in sex magic, you will find a lot of relationship work, a lot of glamour and confidence work. And so there's going to be a variety of that. Next month's presentation will also have a lot more in terms of I did go into like sexual assault recovery, sex worker practices. And this month is kind of like a one size fits all. It covers a lot of different topics. But again, I kept it simple. I kept it more potatoes than meat. And please let me know what you think and what you feel about this presentation. But let me pull it up and we'll get going. All right, here we go, the techie part. All right, here's my share. Let's find it. Okay, so sacred sexuality, and these are our basic do-it-yourself ritual spells and glam, part one of two. All right, so this very first one here, in sex magic, we deal with a lot of body insecurity. That's, when we're working through, if you go all the way back to the very first video, which by the way, I did post on YouTube in this series, it's working through our golden shadow. And a lot of that golden shadow work does include overcoming kind of this conditioning or this programming of body insecurity. So a couple of the different, very simple techniques I'm giving you today in terms of spell casting does involve kind of working through that golden shadow. So this first one, very simple. It's about banishing body insecurity. A human figural candle, a bathtub bath salt is really all you need. I would suggest doing this during the waning moon. Again, a lot of these can be customized to your own practice or your own belief system, but this is just kind of the basic format of how you would maybe run one of these workings. So in each one of these spells, I kind of have a little paragraph here trying to explain, the undertow energetically of the spell. And this one specifically, we do live in a society where there seems to be a lot of just impossible beauty standards and, a society that prizes certain bodies over others. But as witches, as rebels, we need to understand and appreciate our own greatness and our own beauty. And, we don't need to be sucked into that shame vortex. We're all hot in our own unique way. And this spell specifically is to remove those voices that say otherwise. So I'm, and all of this you guys will have, I'm emailing this out to everybody. So I might just kind of hit on a few key points here instead of reading them out because, you don't need me to read them out for you. You guys are able to do that yourself. But this spell really focuses on meditating, infusing all of that negativity, those cruel thoughts, mean things that are said or heard, anything really nasty and hurtful and untrue, specifically about our body, kind of flood that out of our core and into that figural, almost like an electrical current. And it is a meditation practice. And as witches, that's probably one of our number one things that we need to master is nobody ever really masters meditation, but the ability to do guided imagery or guided visualizations, because that's part of caste work and really any belief system, right? Even if you're working with deity and ancestors, you need the ability to form those thoughts and transfer those thoughts through you and into objects. So again, this is meditation. You're going to be going through doing some breath work. If you have an altar, great. If not, you can make a makeshift altar. In some of these spells, I talk about having specifically a love or sex altar. Not everybody has room for 20 altars in their house. Make do with what you have. An altar can be just a little space you carve out on your living room table when you're doing a spell. It can be movable. It doesn't have to be stationary. But definitely you're going to be doing some breath work. You're going to be using an altar or table, somewhere sacred and safe that you can do this privately. And you're just going to kind of go through that meditation, right? That infusion, right? With the candle. And then you're going to be doing a sacred bath. There are quite a few sacred baths in here. That is probably, again, I said one of the number one things is, mastering meditation. The number two thing is really starting to enjoy bathing, because there is a lot of sacred water bathing work involved with casting. So you're going to be using bath salts. I recommend banishing bath salts in this particular body insecurity spell. But you're basically going to be, again, visualizing those bath salts, pulling those toxins, emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical toxins that are nasty, that are low frequency out of your body and into that water. And when you get out and you drain the tub, you're watching that get sucked away. You're going to let that candle finish burning. The spell is complete. Very simple. This is to kind of combat that insecurity we deal with, especially if you spend a lot of time online, TikToking or whatnot. All right, so this is the smoking sex pot spell. You're basically now, again, you can tweak these. There are a couple spells in here where I include cannabis. If you are not a cannabis indulger, you can swap that out for skullcap. Skullcap is an herb. It's readily available. Just make sure you're getting organic skullcap. But in the smoking sex pot spell, it's basically cannabis, demiana, roses, rolling papers or pipe, a lighter, your bathtub, and bath salts. Best time to cast whenever you need some self-care, relaxation, and again, confidence. This is about confidence, you guys. Confidence is sexy. Confidence in itself is magic. It's that secret ingredient in attractiveness. When you're confident, you energetically demand to be treated like an insanely hot person, right? And so you got to treat yourself beautifully before you can expect others to do so as well. So working on your confidence and your self-love, this is kind of a psychoactive self-love spell, but it is fundamental in practice. Especially if you are casting for third parties, you got to have that confidence. You got to believe in yourself 110%. So, again, if you don't indulge in marijuana, skullcap I think is a wonderful stand-in, or whatever you use. Some people use mullein, mugwort, wormwood. Careful with the wormwood, but there are lots of stand-ins if you don't like cannabis. Or you can just skip it altogether. So Damiana, of course, is a known aphrodisiac. This is a very, very simple, you're kind of, making a smokable spell. I did have those on Etsy at one time and I got in trouble. I guess you're not allowed to sell those on there, but If you're with your rose petals, before I forget, make sure you're buying organic. I do talk about rose petals in a few of these spells. Always make sure they're organic. I like to have lots of roses in the house. I hang them upside down. I let them dry out. I use them in a lot of different workings. And they don't go bad. They just dry out. You use the dried crushed rose petals for your workings. If you have a grinder or a mortar or pestle, you're going to mix the cannabis, damiana, and rose petals. Cannabis is going to calm and expand your mind. Damiana is going to awaken your sexuality. The rose petals welcome in love, right? You're going to pack your bowl, roll your spliff, whatever you do. You're going to do some chant work here. Chant work is important. A couple of months ago, I did a sacred sexuality presentation on basically Buddhism, the Tibetan tantric magical Buddhism and how it interlays with sacred sexuality with the terras and the mantras. And we talked about sacred words, sacred syllables. And this very much is part of that. That video I also put on YouTube, just so that you guys have access to it. You can keep your mantra very, very simple here. I am hot as hell. You can repeat that over and over again. It's simple. It's meets the point. I gotta move my face here so I can read this. You're going to run your bath water, fill it with your bath salts, add your rose petals so you can soak in that rose tea. The salts are going to suck away again those toxins and all those insecure thoughts. When we talk about toxins, we're talking not just physical, but emotional, mental, spiritual. Lower yourself in the tub, keep your spliff nearby. You can get high, you don't need an excuse. Pleasure is stigmatized by church and state to help keep us in line. There is nothing wrong with feeling good. Enjoy your bath and enjoy your magical herbal love mix. You can shorten your mantra down to I am hot. Create whatever affirmation of your attractiveness works well for you and repeat that over and over until that bath water becomes cool. Your smoke is gone, and you can do this really anytime you like or that you need a boost. It does work. All right, I like to call this one fuck off Facebook. I don't have a Facebook anymore. I haven't had a Facebook in months, and I'll tell you, it was very freeing. I think, these social media sites, unfortunately, I do have to be active on them for grave intentions. If there was a way around it, believe me, I wouldn't. I'm not very techy, and I just feel like there's so much out there that beats away at our spirit. It's unfortunate. Anyway, this spell is called Fuck Off Facebook. You're just going to need your electronic device. A small container like a 4-ounce mason jar is ideal, a Sharpie, and your bold attitude, right? Best time to cast this is during the waning moon. Again, according to your own belief structure, you can customize and tweak this. So we know from our own social media activity that what we post is not always a fair reflection of how we're feeling, right? I think, you never see somebody posting themselves having a terrible day. Well, sometimes you do, I guess, depending on the person. It's usually always these pretty filtered photos. Life is wonderful. Look at these beautiful things. Look at these beautiful experiences. We don't see the ugly. All right. So as a result, it's very easy for us to jump on sites like Facebook and start stalking exes, or anybody really that has influence over us emotionally. And by doing that, it only serves to make us feel badly about ourselves, right? So this spell is used to really banish the insecurity created through social media and to encourage confidence when we use our devices, right? Not to let those things affect us, not to absorb that energy. So, the first thing I recommend with this spell is unfollowing people if you're following them and it makes you feel shitty. Blocking them is even better. If for some reason you can't do that because of, it would cause drama at work or with friends or family, I guess, just hit that mute button. I think most social sites now have that ability to mute. Unfollow and mute their family and friends if they're on your shit. You don't need all that. If it makes you feel better, send a private message that explains that you need to unfriend them, but hope to reconnect again in the future. You don't have to explain yourself, but if it makes you feel better, go ahead. It's unrealistic for most of us not to use our electronic devices and social media. In today's day and age, I think it's almost impossible. However, we do want them to lift us up. So I want you to pick an image of something or someone who makes you feel confident, And I want you to set that as your wallpaper on your phone. I actually have right now my current wallpaper. I use sigils. If I'm working on drawing in money, if I'm working on enhancing a connection with a deity, I will use their sigils, their symbols as my wallpaper. Right now, I have both Asmodeus and Paimon as my wallpaper, their sigils. So pick what makes you feel good, something that lifts you up, and use that as your wallpaper. Use Magic, for your wallpaper there. Now, I want you to create your own magical salts to use in protective and banishing work. Now, you don't have to do anything crazy here. If you can obtain salt with special meaning, like I have a client who actually gets their salt from Iceland because Iceland has special meaning for them, great. There are so many salts out there. I mean, different colors, different flavors, different everything, right? Pick something that speaks to you, add in your implementations that you personally use in your craft for shielding and warding. This recipe is wide open to whatever you currently use, right? Um, put that in a container. That 4-ounce mason jar, works great. Write your symbol of love and strength, onto the container. Sorry, I sometimes I need a sip of coffee. Hang on, you guys. I need a sip of coffee. It could be a simple heart on the lid with a Sharpie. It doesn't have to, again, this can be very simple. You don't have to make it complex. You're going to sprinkle that salt in front of your door and around your home to banish negativity and usher in joy. And do not refollow those hurting you until the emotional response they provoke dies out. And the reason I'm telling you, there are other things you can do. You can put your phone in that salt, but I don't really recommend doing that too often because it can damage your phone. You can sprinkle it on your devices, but your home really, if you absorb stuff from social media, where are you off putting it? In your home, right? You're usually alone, sitting on the couch or in bed when you're scrolling. So that's why you're treating your home environment, because that's where that energy it's channeling through you, and then you're kicking it out in your environment. Oops. All right, curate community, create a coven. Now, we have a virtual coven basically, and I use the word coven and use whatever word works best for you. There's different terms to that mean the same thing. We're basically a sisterhood. We are a group of practitioners. Whatever label you want to put on that, put on that. It's fine. I'm using the term coven just because it's easily understood and everybody knows what I mean. But community is important. And I just did a video yesterday on the importance of community and group spell casting, especially. We don't have to be in the same room. We don't have to physically be interacting to be community and to pour our energy into one another to help amplify our individual needs, our individual petitions, and just feed that energy from different angles. So community is important. So check that video out. I just talked about it yesterday. I think I posted it on all my socials. But you're going to need, for this particular working, some trusted fellow witches and a place to meet. So that could be right here in Zoom land. We can meet in Zoom. It can be people on the other side of the world. It doesn't have to be somebody in your town. Some of us are in areas where, unfortunately, society is not caught up, so it might be hard to find community in your actual physical community. That's what one of the good things about the internet are. We just talked about how shitty Facebook is, but one of the best things about the internet and the invention of the internet is being able to find like-minded people and connect with them online and have a virtual community. All right, the best time to cast, which is basically anytime you want to begin organizing at any time. You can meet together on each Sabbath or witches holidays or, commemorating the changing of the seasons. I do once a month, I do a live Zoom for our dream tending. I do these videos, but I do a lot of one-on-one Zooms. I'm actually considering next month for October for Samhain doing a live spirit communication group. I'm going to take it back to basics back a couple years ago when we started doing that. I'm trying to coordinate with Madison and Delaney because they are clear audience and I do need them in the group if we're going to do that. But that's just an example of a way you can organize and come together during sacred times, and interact with one another if you're not in the same physical community. So friends and support systems outside of our romantic and sexual relationships are crucial for our mental health, and that's why the spell is in here. um, Friendships and support systems, if we have those in place, it prevents us from looking to our partner to meet all of our needs, which, if you do that, it's going to end in failure probably. So, magically speaking, having a solitary practice is crucial, but a coven or a sisterhood, a group, helps us grow both our support system and our personal practice, right? It gives us an opportunity to practice ritual, ceremonial magic while connecting us to community and the holy Sabbaths, right? Whatever those are to you. So, the first thing here, calling upon those, that are like-minded, deciding what do you want in a coven, who can you trust, what can each member bring to the table. You want to be inclusive, but you also want to be discriminant here. You want to avoid inviting people in. I use the word flaky, but really what I mean is people that don't take it seriously, because that's just bad juju, right? It's going to just bring a damper to everything. Um, on YouTube, I did post also recently, I think maybe a couple of months ago. I do have a video on there called The Traditional Rites of Witchcraft. And I also did another one recently. I think it was Sacred Sexuality, where I talk about the psychology of ritual, and I kind of break down how to actually format like group functions, meetings, how to give people titles. I think that might have been last month's Sacred Sexuality post. I think it's when I went over the Lesser Pentacle ritual and then ritual psychology. So check that video out. It's free. It kind of gives you some in-depth, meaty formats for kind of creating a coven and how you want to run it and the titles involved and all that kind of stuff. But this is just keeping it simple. Pick a name for your group. What words hold the power that you wish to manifest, right? So again, sacred words, back to that Tibetan Buddhist practice magic. Create a secure email chain to organize with your people. Start meeting schedules. Allow everyone in the group to lead meetings, and to lead different Sabbats. You want everyone to have an opportunity to express themselves and then to teach the rest of the people in the group maybe a new perspective, with that changing season, or a spell or ritual where they have a different take on it. Devise a ritual, that may invoke asking the rest of everybody to bring certain things, like one person may bring flowers. And then, all of these things need to be charged. It can be a group altar if you're getting together physically, but if you're getting together in Zoom land, you can each have independent altars where you're charging things and that energy is getting put into the whole, right? So you can do this in Zoom land. It doesn't have to be physical. Not everybody has money, right? So not everybody can, kick in. So these individuals maybe they can write a poem or do some sort of writing that invokes the essence of whatever, Sabbath you're celebrating or whatever ritual you're doing. So before the official meeting starts, it's always a good idea. I say to bring snacks and beverages if it is a physical in-person meeting, because you want time to hang out and bond before ritual. Even in Zoom land, same thing. Leave some time to sit and chat and talk with one another, and have some, a drink or some snacks, and, let everybody kind of warm up into each other before you jump right into it. All right, so each meeting should begin by casting a circle. What happens at Coven stays at Coven. Again, that can be done virtually. And while Coven meetings can remain secret, you want to support your sisters outside of ritual and daily life. So if we're only communicating and meeting, if it's kind of a secret thing, like what we're doing online with each other, if we're doing, castings, you still want to consider that person as a person, not just, a sister and a sisterhood. So if that person needs support outside of your monthly meetups on Zoom, make sure that you're a support for that person. Sometimes people just need to vent or they need advice. Make sure you're open to that. It is a sisterhood. It is about community, but it's also about supporting one another and lifting each other up, because some people that they don't have many other resources. And so you want to be a resource. That's what being in a sisterhood is all about. All right, this is a bedroom blessing. You know what you're going to need. You're going to need your muggle cleaning supplies. So water, a pot, a bay leaf, sea salt, pepper, dried basils, Florida water. I love Florida water, smells so good. Vinegar, a mason jar or other container, a lemon, eucalyptus essential oil, another thing I can't live without, and cheesecloth. Best time to do this is the new moon. So cleaning is crucial. You know, there's always lingering bad energy, but this kind of comes down to, you know, we are humans and we shed skin cells, right? So your former lovers are all over your bedroom, you know, like cat hair. So this is kind of a magical wash. It contains ingredients hailed for their purification properties. So after cleaning Muggle style, you know, to remove energy, you really, you know, a lot of this is removing that DNA energetic connection left behind by past partners so that you can usher in new love without any lingering old energy in the room. I'm not going to break this down. This is pretty you know, nuts and bolts here. Just kind of tells you how to make the wash and then how to go about washing. It's very, very simple. I like this wash. You can put it in a spray bottle. You can use a washcloth. You can use it for your floors. You can use it for, I use this for my headboard and my bed rails and things like that. So you can use it for whatever calls to you, but go ahead and you have it here on the screen and you can pause this video if you need to. Breaking toxic cycles. Okay, here's another thing like a lot of us have a hard time doing. So what you're going to need is a pen and paper, a black rope or string, scissors, a fire safe container, a lighter, or a handheld blowtorch. The best time to do this, I feel, is during the waning or new moon. But again, based on your belief systems, you can tweak that. So most of us need to conquer our demons at some point in order to break from unhealthy patterns or partner selection stemming from trauma. We've all been there, right? So this spell uses the cord cutting ritual, a very basic one, to help us identify and end old patterns so we can cut the shit out, right? And so that we can love and have sex from a healthy place of confidence. So cut and clear work is very important. You know, it's something that probably should be a consistent part of your magical practice. And so what I like about this one is not only are you cutting the cord, but you're also identifying what you're cutting and why and where it came from. That's going to make you 10 times more likely to seed that energy deeply enough that you're not going to have to keep revisiting it. So number one, most people are assholes. It's true, right? But, you know, sometimes we just keep letting the assholes back into our assholes. That's a joke, you guys. So we want to cut that out, right? So we're going to use the pen and paper. You're going to list all your unhealthy patterns that have led to toxic cycles. For instance, like on my list, you know, moving too fast, ignoring red flags, expecting people to change. We probably have very similar lists, right? You're going to sit down, you're going to cut about a yard of black string or more, depending on how many patterns you want to break. And you're going to state your crime out loud as you tie a knot in the rope. You know, I move too fast in relationships, not. Ignoring red flags, not, right? So on and so forth. Once you've gone through your entire list, tie the ends of the rope to form a loop. You're going to gently place the circle of rope over your hands, almost like shackles, so you can feel that toxicity. You want to consider how each one of those patterns have played into the other, forming that loop, right? Because usually it is, right? It's usually a combination, it's a recipe. So you're going to cut the rope with your scissors in between each knot, breaking the chain one snip after another. And as you cut, you're stating, I release myself from the cycle holding me back. So when you're finished, you're going to put the ends of the rope in the fire safe container. You're going to light it and watch it burn. And when your unhealthy patterns are all burnt up, you're going to throw the remains away and take out the trash right away, immediately. Very, very simple, very, very effective, you guys. Also, I recommend Neptune work. If you're doing cut and clear work, if you can do it during, you know, Neptune oppositions, that's ideal. You know, Neptune is associated with addictions and unhealthy patterns and cycles based off of trauma responses. So Neptune, from an astrological standpoint, is very important in this type of work as well. So always take that into consideration. I just posted about that the other day too. And we have a Neptune opposition coming up on September 23rd. which is next week, and we're doing a community service on that. So for you guys and your solo practices, consider involving Neptune into your cut and clear work because it does empower it. Green flying ointment. Oh my gosh. I'm sure you guys who have read the old grimoires, they talk about this all the way back in the 12th and 13th century. So hang on, I need some coffee. For this, you're going to need about a cup of ground cannabis flour, a grinder or your mortar and pestle, a cup of coconut oil, a medium-sized bowl, a dash of water, a slow cooker, or you can use a double broiler or saucepan, a strainer or cheesecloth. I recommend cheesecloth, and a container such as a mason jar. Best time to cast this whenever you're ready to get your hands dirty and elevate to another plane of existence. So this is kind of tapping into your inner kitchen witch to create your own, we call it flying ointment, quote unquote. So this potion historically was inserted into the vagina for hallucinogenic effects. So these existed primarily to have a good time while masturbating, honestly. Now we know we use it, and which is the olden days used it to help with their manifestation practice. So the psychedelic properties that are involved here often offer personal insight and clarity, which is why cannabis is involved. So we did modify this to replace difficult to obtain and poisonous ingredients. The original recipes involved deadly nightshade. We're not going to be putting that anywhere. So we use cannabis now. It's just a safer and easier way to procure the same experience. So I kind of break down here what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. You don't need to go out and spend a lot of money on cannabis. You can use low grade shake if you have it. It's it doesn't have to be high end. This is going to walk you through it. Let me move my picture here so I can. There is a decarbonate. It's decarbing. You have to decarb your weed. For those of you who make edibles, you know exactly what that means. For those of you who have never decarbed weed before, I kind of break it down in number 3. It's a very simple process. It sounds complicated. It's not complicated. I would use a slow cooker. They actually sell decarbolators on the market now. You can actually buy machines specifically for doing this, and they're only 100, $200. But if you're somebody who makes a lot of potions, tinctures, edibles, things like that, I would actually recommend buying a decarbolator. I bought one from, and I can't remember the name of the company. I just sold it before I moved from Racine up here to Minneapolis, and I can't remember the name of it. Damn it. I'll have to look for it and I'll have to post it to you guys. But I think I spent $150 on my machine and it was beautiful. It was perfect. So if you can afford one and you use stuff like this a lot, use a decarbolator. Otherwise, very easy method in number 3 here. You can use this if you store it in a dark, cool place. It's good for up to 2 months, or you can freeze it. It's good for up to 3 months. So what are you going to do with it? Your final product is your cannabis flying oil. You can drizzle it on food. You can replace any sort of muggle oil with it to make edibles. I actually have this amazing, it uses cannabis butter. They're Rice Krispie treats, and they're so good. Anyway, you can use it in tinctures. Eating it is going to produce the most psychoactive effects. However, you can also use it as a lube and masturbate with it. That is part of sex magic work, is manifesting via masturbation. The mucous membranes are different on penises, so you need a consenting vagina or anus to use what are called flying lubes. It's not going to work on a penis, you guys. I'm sorry. I would not use it with condoms because the oil will degrade the latex. So just an FYI there. If applied vaginally, the ointment is going to increase blood flow and orgasm. It also decreases pain without numbing you. So you can apply it while practicing sex magic for added abilities. As witches, we do not demonize the psychoactive properties of plants. Cannabis is a medicine. So in addition to increasing pleasure when applied topically, smoking or ingesting cannabis can heighten our creative states and our psychic abilities. There's no hard and fast rules here on how to use this ointment. It's safe to experiment with. You cannot overdose on cannabis. You can use it however best fits your needs. excuse me, summon the perfect partner. I gotta move my photo again. Boy, my picture box just is always in the way. Okay, so you're gonna need a pen and paper, a red, pink, or white candle shaped like either a penis or vagina, or you can get a male or female figural candle set, a condom, lube, a candle carving tool, and your favorite variety of love oil. Um, Best time to cast the waxing moon. Now, I will tell you, there is if you so one of the original spells that I didn't add here, but I'll just kind of briefly talk about it, is using the penis shaped candle. And that's actually what you're putting the condom on. You literally masturbate with that candle. I am not breaking it down that way. I'm giving you a different way to do it because a lot of people are not comfortable practicing sex magic with, a wax candle in their vagina, even if it is in a condom. So let me break down how summoning the perfect partner will work in an alternate way. So, number one, what do you want in a partner? Is it sex? Is it somebody who pays for everything? Is it just someone who's very kind but kinky, very non-judgmental but honest? You need to write down exactly what you're looking for, and you need to be honest on this list. You're going to grab your candle, which is going to represent the person you wish to conjure. So that could be a penis, a vagina, a man, a woman, whatever you're looking for, right? These are just shapes. They're just representations of energy. And you can really use any candle for any gender, to be honest with you. Red typically represents passion, pink, self love. White is usually a stand in color or a divine color. Now, if you do intend to penetrate yourself with the candle, the penis shape does work best. Okay. I would not represent, I wouldn't actually, try to do it with any other candle. Anyway, moving forward. I want you to live with the candle for 7 days as if it were your partner. Have it sit next to you while you watch TV, let it sleep in your bed. Now, using a condom, oh, I actually did tell you, oh my gosh, I thought I used a different alternative and I didn't. Okay, so anyway, I guess I did give you the old school method. So using a condom and lots of lube, like the green flying ointment, that recipe I just gave you in the last slide. Because you want to make sure you're not getting wax in any orifice. You have penetrative sex with the candle. You perform sex magic while the candle is inside of you, visualizing that partner coming to life. After 7 days, using your candle carving tool, you're going to carve your name and zodiac symbol into the candle. I always do my sun sign. Some people prefer using their moon sign or their rising, whatever works for you, or all three. I mean, you can do all three if you want. You're going to dress the candle with your love oil of choice. You're going to place that candle on your love altar or whatever you're using at that time. Again, this is all negotiable. You're going to light it and let it burn. And when the candle is finished burning, the spell is complete. That's so funny. I thought I gave you like a revamped version of it, but that is the old school version. So that's so funny. Anyway, moving on. All right, Venus powder. Here's another recipe for you guys. And here I am having to move this damn photo box again. Jesus. All right, Venus powder. So you're gonna need a mortar and pestle, some dragon's blood, dried red rose flower, a mixing bowl, red glitter, vanilla extract, red food dye, pubic hair clippings, your signature perfume, and some small containers. Now, the best time to cast, whenever you're not afraid to get messy for love. So this Venus powder recipe, you're creating a magical powder to sprinkle around your lover's home, to rub on your candles as a dressage powder, or really in whatever creative way you come up with to ensure that that person stays enthralled by you. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's a domination powder. It's more of a strong-armed love continuation powder. So using your mortar and pestle, you're going to grind up 7 pieces of dragon's blood. Dragon's blood is not only associated with Venus, but it's used to amplify spells. It is the resin of a palm plant and has long been used as a red dye. And red, of course, is usually the color used to represent love and lust. So as you're crushing the dragon's blood, and really for the rest of the spell, you're going to think about that lover you wish to attract, the relationship you want, whatever your intention is behind creating this powder. Now, I would have even taken it a step further. If you are going to do the previous spell in the last slide, now if you're going to be penetrating yourself with the penis candle, you're not using Venus powder. If you are not, if you're going to do an alternate without the penetration, maybe it's just a visualization of penetration, definitely use this Venus powder. Okay, so You're going to take one dried red rose and you're going to crush it up. Again, I told you I find it useful to keep bouquets of those around the house just in case you need it for spell casting. You're going to mix that with your dragon's blood. You're going to put a quarter cup of flour in a mixing bowl. That's going to be your base. You're going to add the dragon's blood, the dried rose, and as much red glitter as you please. Some people don't use glitter at all, but I use glitter for everything. Glitter also is good for concealment, so just keep that in mind. Energetically, it's a concealment tool to prevent somebody from knowing that work's been done. All right, so glitter is nearly impossible to remove, which can be a win for you, and too bad for the object of your spell casting if you're laying it in their apartment, especially if you think somebody else is over there that shouldn't be. All right, so add a few dashes of vanilla extract. If you want, you can add some additional red food coloring to increase the color magic aspects. If food dyes aren't for you, you can skip that. For extra potency, you can put in a few trims of your pubic hair. If that grosses you out, don't worry about it. You can skip that part, but it is a powerful effect that will definitely solidify the work. But not everybody's into that. That's fine. Add a spritz of your signature perfume into the powder. It's one of the last steps there. So it doesn't have to be exact. You can eyeball your ingredients, trust your intuition. When you are finished, you're going to place the powder in jars or baggies. You can anoint love candles with it, sprinkle it around your lover's home, put some on top of a picture of them, or even a tarot card that represents their zodiac sign, or even sprinkle some on their body. I put when they're not looking, but if you're playing, use it as a play tool, just not internally. I love sex magic. We really have to specify though, honestly. Okay, the Scarlet Soap. For this, you just need a bathtub of bath salt, a glittery bath bomb. Best time to cast the new moon. And here I'm in the way again. Oh my gosh, you guys. So weird today. Okay. So this is really about sexual shame. And sexual shame is really ingrained via society. Even the most sexually confident of us can feel badly sometimes, whether it's via bullying or some not nice things said to us by people that are important to us. Labels are really hard to scrub off. But there are spells for that. Your bathtub is like a giant cauldron, and it can wash away these societally ingrained hangups just by soaking in the power of your own liberated sexuality. We are goddesses. We can free the sacred slut within us without feeling bad about it. Okay. There's no reason to feel bad. That's a society thing, right? So you're going to fix yourself a bath, fill it with cleansing bath salts. Add any bath bombs or potions you really desire. You're the master of your body, and this is a bath cauldron. You get to decide what goes in it. Once it's filled, you're going to lie back in there, and you're not washing off your sins in this bath because they do not exist. You are perfect as you are, but you are letting the salt and water suck out any of those harsh words, names, labels, experiences that you and your body have been put through that have been shaming. Name calling from abusive exes, shame ruled teachings of your family or religious figures, being bullied in school because of what you wore, like you wore tight clothes. If you're being bullied online, it's okay to go to all these dark places. You're safe. You're in those magic bath waters, and they're drawing all that past negativity and shame out of you. So you're going to enjoy that bath as long as you can, realizing that you're in control. You can pull the drain and let any of that nasty residue, that ill-informed, jealous energy that other people have projected onto you, just watch it swirl away. This actually works. It really does. I've done this a few times. I'm telling you, the Scarlet Soak is one of my favorite ways to kind of reset after somebody has, said something not nice to me. Come to me, candied rose petals. You guys know I love edible magic. And one of these months I am going to do a whole edible magic series. I do these little videos, and I put them on all my socials. I think I've done like a cross conditioning cake, a cross conditioning organ meat using, cow heart. I've done some of those breads. I love infusing breads. But this one is very, very simple. You don't have to know how to, cook a cow heart or make, make bread. But so this one, you're just going to need 2 large egg whites, a whisk, a bowl, a pastry brush, and petals from organic roses, and about half a cup of sugar. Best time to make these, the waxing moon, I think, is beautiful. Um, yes, we have baked cakes filled with menstrual blood. That is a real thing. And other additives meant to enchant a lover, gullible enough to eat it, right? Baking isn't for everyone, but these candied rose petals are very super magical. And even the most anti-kitchen witch can make them. They're very easy. And for those who love baking, you can use these, as standalones, but you can add them as decoration to your favorite cake recipes. There's a recipe I'll share with you guys. It's called the Persian love cake. So if you're doing Venus work, or if you're doing a Venus astrological service, Venus adores Persian love cakes. So there's that. So very simple. You're whisking the egg whites in a mixing bowl until fluffy and foamy. You're going to paint each rose petal with egg whites on both sides. You're going to sprinkle both sides with that sugar. And as you do, whisper to the roses, I am love. This is almost like a self-love edible spell. And then leave them out on a rack overnight to dry. You can eat them yourself, feed them to a lover, or use them to decorate cakes and other treats. When the kids were younger, used to do this and put this on their treats because I wanted them to know how much they were loved. I wanted them to love themselves. And so, self-love and knowledge of love, the embodiment of love, you can use them for that, like with your children. Because I used to decorate the girls' treats with these, and they used to love eating them when they were little. And it was for love. Oops. First date blessing. So you'll need your favorite strain of cannabis again. You can swap that out with the examples I gave you earlier, or you could use wine, makeup string, 1 red rose petal, a black tourmaline, a snippet of your hair, and your favorite song. So the best time to cast this is obviously right before that first date. So first dates are exciting. You're going to meet somebody new. You never know what you're going to get. They could show up drunk and spend the whole date ranting about their ex, but you know what? At least you put yourself out there. You know, in all seriousness, really first dates do get a bad rap, but they are super fun. So whether or not you're meeting the person of your dreams, it is a chance for you to put yourself out there. It's a chance for you to shine. You're getting out of the house. You're letting the world see you and all your sparkle. And so whether it goes good or bad, it's good. So you want to cast the spell to find love while also protecting yourself from any monsters out there, because I've been on some first dates where I literally ran back to my car once, ran uphill, and I'm not a runner. Anyway, story for a different time. So put on your favorite song, or even better yet, your whole damn playlist that reminds you of how fabulous you are. If you like partaking, enjoy some cannabis or sip some wine. Not enough to get messed up, but enough to just loosen up a little bit. Let your nerves settle. Okay. The world always has our nervous system in like a rapid fire state. So it's important to bring it down from that once in a while. So do your hair, your makeup in a manner that makes you feel extremely good about yourself. You're going to place a piece of string in front of you, and on it, put 1 fresh petal off a red rose. I spelt it petal like a bike. Sorry, guys. I didn't do spell check. Sorry. In the middle of the petal, place a small chunk of black tourmaline. Now, black tourmaline contains protective powers. It's very protective in nature. You're going to snip just a tiny bit of your hair, just enough to sprinkle on top of your bundle. You're going to tie up the bundle with the string and put it into your purse or pocket so it's there with you all night. It is protection. It is protection. It's first date protection for sure. Hot sex incense, you guys. Okay. Mortar and pestle, dried rose petals, vanilla bean, myrtle leaves, patchouli leaves, dragon's blood resin, amber resin. We're getting a little bit more complicated here. A jar, charcoal tablets, a fireproof surface, and tongs. Okay. Best time to cast during the waxing or the full moon, but again, whatever works best for you. Now, this is going to be a loose incense. Now, basically what that means is a lot of people are familiar with stick incense and cone incense. Loose incense, you actually have to put it on top of a little charcoal tablet to burn it. And I put in a couple little jokes in here, like it's an honor to be a loose woman, or whichever word represents your gender. And here's the thing with the vagina cannot actually become loose from too much sex. You know, that's stupid muggle talk. Okay, that's meant to keep women and other marginalized genders from really enjoying sex, right? With as many partners as they please. This hot sex incense contains 6 ingredients, as 6 is the number corresponding with Venus. So after you make it, place some upon a charcoal tablet. Use it as traditional incense, basically, is what I'm saying. But it can also be left in dishes to burn during a sexual encounter, which I recommend. While doing love or sex spells, very, very recommended. Or really whenever you wish to invoke that hot sex goddess within you, right? Whenever you want to wake her up. So using your mortar and pestle, you're going to grind the herbs. You know, roses are for love and beauty. You know, that's a staple. And it's also associated with Aphrodite. So Aphrodite is also often pictured with myrtle leaves in her hair. And that herb is used for love and protection. Vanilla is associated with Venus also and self-empowerment. Patchouli conjures lust. You're going to blend them together into a medium fine powder and set aside those ground herbs in their own solo dish. Now, you're going to add the resins, which will act as the base. Now, freeze these resins ahead of time so you can grind them easier, because otherwise it's really hard to grind them. So dragon's blood is that powerful blood red ingredient that will enhance any spell due to its color, but it's also associated with passion and amplifies courage. Amber, like the sun, it brings power and strength. So grind those with your mortar and pestle. They're going to leave a residue, which is why you do the resins last in your own bowl. So you're going to combine your herbs and your resins, mix them together with that mortar and pestle. And you're going to store it in, a pouch or a jar. I would let it sit for a few weeks so the mixture can marry. That's what we call it. The mixture needs to marry. A compound needs to marry. So like when I make compounds for root cast, I let them marry for a couple of weeks. So then you're going to pick up some charcoal tablets and use them as you please. If you've never worked with a charcoal tablet before, you basically light the tablet and then just have it placed on a fireproof surface, using tongs, so you don't burn yourself. And you're going to let it sit for a minute or two until the entire disc is sort of sparkling. And then you just put that loose incense right on top. Very easy. Psychic sex smoke blend. Say that 4 times fast. So you need a place to meditate, cannabis, or again, skullcap or mullein or mugwort or wormwood. Dried rose petals. Oh, wait, you already have mullein in here. Sorry. Damiana, rolling papers or pipe, and a lighter. I will also tell you this about rolling papers. Boy, it's getting warm in here. There is a vendor, I believe she's still on Etsy. I'll have to double check. She actually makes rolling papers out of rose petals, like out of roses. There's a couple vendors out there that use organic materials like that to make rolling papers. They're called rose papers, and there's other varieties too. I have used those, and I think it really heightens spells like this, because now even your rolling papers are, rose petals. So it's infusing like doubly, like a triple effect on the spell. So I do recommend that if you are somebody who smokes. I think she's on Etsy. I'll have to look, but just put in organic rose rolling papers. There's probably a couple people that sell them, but they're very, very nice addition. And a lighter you need. Best time to cast whenever you're about to have sex. I like to be funny in some of these, and I'd say it out loud, but I think like if I ever post this on YouTube, I'll probably get dinged for that. It's fine. All right, cannabis and other herbs, especially when coupled with meditation, elevate our minds to a place where we can deeply connect with our partners and their needs. You'll also confidently ask for and receive what you desire from your partner. So prepare yourself a cozy meditation space before a date or before your lover comes over. Create your psychic smoke blend. If you are prone to anxiety during sex, maybe opt for an indica or a cannabis strain that's high in CBD. Now, if you are feeling lethargic, I would go for an energizing sativa or a strain that's high in THC. Now, those dried rose petals connect you to your heart chakra, and they are a romantic aphrodisiac. Mullein is often used as a base in smoking blends, but it also surprisingly does offer pain relief. It is a slight sedative, so don't use too much. Damiana is an ancient aphrodisiac, as we talked about earlier. It has a very smooth and spicy taste. You're going to combine the herbs in a manner that fits your needs. So it doesn't have to be a specific, whatever works best for you. You're going to roll your joint, pack your bowl, whatever your preferred smoking method is. Sit in your comfy meditation spot. You're going to take a few hits of your magical smoke blend. You're going to close your eyes. You're going to begin meditating. As you do, imagine a bright ruby sparkling where your heart is. You're going to notice your heart beating. This ruby is going to be beating. And as the blood pumps through your body and through your genitals and every erogenous zone, visualize that majestic red spreading throughout your body. You're going to imagine your partner, visualize their body. Picture yourself making love to them. Where do you want to touch them? What do you want to do to them? And what do you want them to do to you? Have your visualizations as specific as possible. When you're ready, come out of the meditation, use your smoke blend as you please, and feel free to share it with your partner. Maintain your heightened state of mind to be completely in the moment during sex and unburdened by insecurities. So that's a fun one. All right. I need another sip here. Oh my gosh, you guys just see me like dribble like crazy all over myself. That's all right. It happens. Let me just make sure I don't look like too crazy. All right. It's fine. Boy, oh boy, that's all right. I had a shower anyway, right? Survive a dry spell. All right, we all have them. So you're going to need a pen and paper, water, a lighter, chamomile tea bags, a bathtub, again, your giant cauldron, lavender essential oil, and sea salt. The best time to cast, the waning moon is great for washing off negative thoughts and assumptions. So I do suggest the waning moon. So as humans who crave companionship, we all know dry spells can suck, especially after a rough breakup. And it's very easy to let our minds spiral. Now, we may feel convinced that we're unfuckable, right? Or that we're never going to love again. And this is so far from the truth. So you have to change your mindset and embrace this period as a time in which you are free to do whatever and whoever you want. Your last mate breakup probably was very painful, but it was a necessary step in your journey. You need to trust in the universe that a healthier love is awaiting you. Now, I want you to, excuse me, write down all of your fears on a piece of paper. If you fear that your last breakup was a mistake, write that down. If you fear no one will ever want to have sex with you again, write that down. If you feel you're not to this or you're to that to ever find love, write all of that shit down. Just let it all out of your system. Now, on a second piece of paper, I want you to reverse your statements. For instance, if you wrote that you're too crazy for a relationship, I want you to rewrite that as my next relationship will be with someone interesting enough to understand me. If you wrote no one wants to fuck me, rewrite that as I look forward to meeting my next sexual partner. If you wrote I'm alone, rewrite that as I am free. So you're going to go ahead and do these lists. Now, I want you to begin to boil enough water for a pot of tea on the stove. When the water is boiling, I want you to hold your list of fears over the sink, and I want you to start it on fire and let it burn down. Just drop it in the sink. Now, when the water is ready on the stove, you're going to make your chamomile tea. Now, as the tea steeps, you're going to run your bath. You're going to place your lavender oil and your list of positive statements near the bath. You're going to toss a handful of cleansing and purifying sea salts into the running bath water. You're going to pour yourself a cup of tea to drink and then add the rest of that chamomile tea to your bath water. Chamomile is soothing to the body and it is associated magically with strength, especially in overcoming adversity and manifesting love. You're going to add 10 drops of lavender essential oil to the bath. The number 10 refers to the end of a cycle. So for instance, the image on the 10 of swords, everybody is so afraid of the 10 of swords. Now in that tarot card at first glance, it looks like despair, right? However, if you study it closely, that card refers to the phrase, it's always darkest before dawn. So lavender like chamomile is soothing and relaxing. Now it's the time for you to shed your fears. Know that we learn from these missteps in romance and that it's always darkest before dawn. Lower your body into the tub. Let the salt soak out all those self-depreciating thoughts And the chamomile and lavender is going to soothe you. You're going to sip on your tea and just kind of chill out as you meditate on your list of positive statements. And I want you to say them out loud as you enjoy your bath. You're going to get out of the bath and get to work on having some fun. Let the demons that want you to feel badly about yourself swirl down the drain with the bath water and disappear. I love this one. Have makeup sex. All right, you're going to need 2 red candles, a love oil or bodily fluids or hair from you and your partner if possible, and 1 green candle. Best time to cast waning moon. Now, this is going to help you remove hurt, but honestly, you can cast this spell whenever you need to. Love isn't always patient, and sometimes it does require immediate attention. It's important to be aware and clear on your boundaries. Now, for instance, if someone speaks to you in an abusive manner, you need to dump them. However, it's important to consider that the age of swiping, again, phones, makes it real easy for us to throw our relationships out, especially relationships we don't actually truly want to end, the heat of the moment. So, humans do mess up. Sometimes it can be cheating. Sometimes it's blurting out the wrong thing. So, except for when there are cases where abuse is involved, the only one who can really decide if forgiveness is in order is you. And if you want to forgive and make up, have some magic makeup sex. Seriously. All right. So after cleansing, hold the red candle in your hand. This candle represents your partner. Meditate on what you fought over and the hurt that was created in that. Talk to the candle. Tell it how much it hurt you, and then tell it that you forgive it. Coat the red candle in love oil, or if available, use your partner's fluids or effects. Placing their hair on the candle works wonderfully. And then put it on the altar to the right. Here's my right. I guess that would be your left. Hold the second red candle in your hand. This represents you. Meditate on the decision of forgiveness. Anoint this candle as well in love oil, your own fluids or hair. Menstrual blood also works really good in a lot of these spells. It's very potent. And then you're going to place that on the altar to the left. You're going to hold that green candle, which represents healing and the energetic child of your relationship or bridge. You guys, if you do readings with me, I refer it to as a bridge. Place it at the top of the altar in between the 2 candles. So the red and green are for passion and also for help. All right, say out loud, with the power of love, I forgive you for your actions. With the power of mercy, I understand and let go. With the power of passion, we courageously move forward. Light the candles. Understand that as they burn away, so does any lingering resentments. And by casting the spell, you promise to move forward with your partner. Find your partner and ensure they understand everything you told the candles, and have hot makeup sex as those candles burn. Very simple, very fun. Oh, jealousy. This is a fun one. Okay. Tame jealousy. You will need 1 blue candle and a pen and a notebook. Now, the best time for this one is the waning moon, but honestly, you're going to probably have to use it whenever. So blue is typically the color of tranquility. In addition to communication and clarity, you hold the blue candle to charge it with all of the fear or suspicion that you may have, all the trauma, all the insecurities forming your jealousy. And then you're basically going to burn the candle while following this ritual to identify, number 1, why are you jealous? What communication needs to happen? That's number 2. Or if you need to uncover secrets or, have some sort of reason, that's number 3. And really, number 4, manifesting strength and clarity to be able to communicate with your partner, is all of this has to work together to banish jealousy. And that will happen as the blue candle burns away if you follow the steps. So, number 1, we all feel jealous, regardless if we're monogamous, polyamorous. Jealousy is not a bad emotion. You're not wrong to feel it. However, it is an emotion that can disrupt a relationship. So you need to get ahead of it. So number 2, sit down with all those jealous thoughts. Grab your blue candle. You're going to be going to that bad place, right? That bad energy place. No energy is bad, but let's call it dark. I want you to think of every petty, angry, scared, and insecure thought that you have had, especially with this partner. Imagine all that dark, slimy energy going out of your body and mind and into this candle through you, again, like an electrical current. And you're going to place that candle on your altar and you're going to let it burn. Now, number three, while that candle is burning, I want you to write down what you're jealous about. Is it another person? Are you jealous about their appearance, their success, or what they can offer your partner? Obviously, every situation is going to be different, but once you identify what you're jealous of, it's easier to understand why, right? So, insecurity is usually underneath the jealousy. That's pretty typical. So, whatever is making you jealous may bring out negative thoughts on how you look, what you do for a living, where you're from, so that's something that needs to be brought out of your system. You have to purge that. Okay. Number four, now consider all that you have that likely makes other people jealous. Think about what makes you attractive, happy, successful in your own right. And remind yourself that everyone's path in the world is different and there isn't one way to go about the world. Someone else may threaten you or you may feel threatened by somebody else, but that doesn't mean they're better than you, right? So acknowledging these truths, these universal truths. Number five, from a calmer perspective, have an honest conversation with your partner. Communication is everything. You need to be honest about what's going on and to see what they think. You want to think, you want to see what they think is there. Is there a reason to worry? If not, be adults and come up with a solution. Now, when the candle is finished burning away, all of those insecurities that you infused into it, the spell is complete. All right, a spell for clear communication. It's kind of similar. With this one, you're going to need pen and paper, a goblet, water, and citrine. The best time for this one is a full moon because we're actually making an amulet in this one. Let me move my photo again. All right, so before we can communicate our needs, we really do need to understand them. So this is a multi-purpose spell that uses journaling to communicate in the most efficient way possible. And then with the aid of a magically charged water and an amulet for courage, you're going to share your needs with your partner. So while we can magically encourage our partner to reciprocate, ultimately it is on each of us to keep our side of the street clean. And this spell addresses options of healthy communication. All right, number one, relationships can be frustrating, but the way out of confusion is through communication, you guys. Journaling is a therapeutic tool. It helps us identify what we want and become grounded enough to communicate it to other people. So I want you to write about how you're feeling and what you want to express. You're going to fold up that piece of paper when you're done. Now, number two, you're going to fill a goblet or glass with filtered water on the next full moon. You're going to place it on top of that folded piece of paper on a windowsill or somewhere that is exposed to moonlight. You'll need a piece of citrine for this, which is readily available. It's a very popular crystal. It's usually associated with career prosperity, but this stone also has aspects of confidence and abundance. So it's going to help you step into your own boldness and your clarity so that you can realize your worth. So you're going to place that citrine in the goblet. Number three, you're going to let that goblet sit overnight under the full moon so it becomes fully charged with that power. Number four, the next morning, gently remove the citrine from the glass. Drink the water. You are drinking in your intentions and the confidence to communicate them to the subject of your letter. Feel the power course through you. I mean, really feel it. And then number five, with calm boldness and integrity, you're going to ask to hang out with your love interests and communicate your needs and questions with grace. Now, I think I stepped over making the amulet. Maybe that's the next one. There's an amulet we can make out of this citrine. I think I put it in another spell. I'm sorry, guys, but I really love this spell. I can tell you I've used this several times, and it really does give you an infusion of power, especially if your kind of communication can be very difficult. Communication, especially with a lover, can be very difficult. This really does help. All right, so hang on. Intercultural relationships. I thought I saved this for next month, but I guess I threw it in this slide. Okay, intercultural relationships. For this one, you're going to need a 6x6 piece of white fabric, moonstone, two rose petals, two apple seeds, black tourmaline, snippets of yours and your loved one's hair, a piece of red ribbon, and sage. The best time to cast this usually is on Fridays. So, while intercultural and interracial couples have always faced discrimination in a world where certain religions and countries really ban people from entering into these relationships, they're difficult. But they also can be the most rewarding relationships. And what this spell is a protection spell to really keep away or minimize those kind of awful outside influences. We call them sourcing features, sourcing factors, external factors. If you ever do a reading with me, I always refer to sourcing. This is to really address sourcing and to protect your relationship from it. All right. Excuse me. All right. The first thing I want you to do, you're going to lay out that white piece of fabric. The color white is divine. It's also a safeguard, right? So we're going to wrap you two beautiful lovebirds up in some of that. Okay. So this is your interracial couple that you're either helping or you yourself are in this relationship. So a lot of people do this for third parties, but it may work very well for your situation. Place the moonstone in the middle of the fabric. Moonstone is used to increase empathy. Most of us can always stand to apply a little bit more empathy to other people. Then place two rose petals representing romance and you and your partner in the middle of the fabric. You're going to add the two apple seeds for protection. You're going to place that chunk of black tourmaline in for super duper protection. And then I would optionally sprinkle this with your personal effects. So hair, nail clippings, whatever you have. Some people use photos. That's going to amplify the potency of the spell. Now, using a red ribbon to symbolize love, you're going to tie up the fabric into a sack. This represents your sacred, protected love. You're going to light sage and hold it underneath the pouch to cleanse and remove any unwanted clinging energies. And then you're going to keep that bag somewhere safe, your underwear drawer, your altar. One caveat I put in here, understand that unfortunately, spells are not always enough to combat the evils of the world, right? Unless they are done with follow through. Follow through is so important, you guys. So you need to check in with your partner. You need to educate yourself on their culture. Be ready to mess up. Be ready to own up to mistakes. Be ready to forgive them for theirs and be brave enough to have an ongoing conversation of the complexities and how to navigate intercultural, interracial relationships where there is a lot of sourcing kind of causing issues. Surviving long distance. Okay, this is another biggie. I actually have been going through this for going on a year and a half. So you will need a view of the moon, a physical or electronic calendar, a black candle, and means to contact your lover and flowers. So the best time to cast, during periods of separation between you and your loved one, of course. I would maintain a calendar. And, if you have a love altar, great. If not, use what you have. But this is going to be kind of guided by the light of the moon to ensure you tend to your long distance relationship. It's almost like a tending calendar. So as you tend to your altar, using a calendar to curate that loving contact with your partner along with the moon cycles. So everything from flower deliveries to handwritten poems as the moon cycles, because your relationship cycles with the moon cycles too. So it also helps to remind you that physical separation is not forever. Sometimes it can feel like forever. So let me break this down for you so it makes better sense. Sometimes the longer that I talk, the more my words get all jumbly. Hang on. I don't know how long I've been talking, but it's been a hot minute. All right, there are cycles in all areas of our life, money, romance, love, and sometimes couples experience brief or prolonged physical separations, whether that's due to work, family, whatever. Now, during this separation, you're going to use the moon, which is the ultimate shapeshifter, to ensure connectivity, basically. So ensure that you have a view of the moon. So wherever you're doing these workings, make sure it's somewhere where you can see the moon, basically. You want to gaze upon it and remember that everyone can see it, including your lover, regardless of how far apart you are. And you're going to set up a calendar physically or online, which tracks the moon phases as well as you and your partner's schedule. So, number two, during the waning phase, the moon appears to get smaller. This is a powerful time to remove hexes, negative thoughts, negative influences. So during this, you're going to burn a black candle to banish any unwanted energies picked up during your time apart from another. Number three, during the new moon phase, the sky is at its darkest. This is a time to, it's basically fresh starts, new beginnings. It's a perfect time to set in energies for yourself and your relationship. So it's a good time to send that person flowers, really. New moon is flowers. Number four, during the first quarter of the lunar cycle, the moon is in its waxing phase. So it appears to grow. So you're going to use this time to remind yourself that growth comes from all experiences, including difficult ones, especially difficult ones. And this would be a good time to send your partner a care package. It doesn't have to be over the top. It could be a gift card to Starbucks. Number five, finally, the full moon is in lunar orgasm, right? Full moon is lunar orgasm. It's a culmination period. So for those of you that, do zodiacal releasing, I'm always looking for culmination periods. So this is a powerful time. It also brings out our animal instincts. So send your lover sex, those sexy text messages. This is a good time to practice sex magic. And you can do that with each other in your different spaces if you wanted to. So that's my survival of long distance relationship spell. Meeting the parents. Okay, so for this, you need lavender essential oil, an outfit and makeup that makes you feel happy and confident. And the best time, obviously, is whenever you hear those words that you're going to visit the parents. And the reason I put this in here is because so often we try to make ourselves into something that we're not to impress other people, especially a partner's parents, right? So this ritual uses self-love and glamour magic techniques so that when you meet the parents, you feel confident in yourself as you are and aware that they, are people that, them and their child are lucky to have you around for you to be giving love to them. Like they're fortunate, right? All right. So number one, it's time to meet the parents, check in with yourself. How are you feeling? Um, I'm someone whose work revolves around a lot of questionable practices according to others. It's occult work, and I always feel panic, especially if I'm meeting a potential partner's parents, especially if they're religious in terms of, old school Christianity, like, so regardless, of my profession, meeting folks, or parents who spawn the person that I'm sexually active with, this is going to be a stressful situation anyway. So we need to begin things with kind of a calming meditation. And so sitting down with your lavender essential oil, place a few drops under your nose, begin the fourfold breath. If you're not familiar with that is, inhale for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, and exhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts again. And you're just going to keep doing that. The lavender is going to calm you. Now, with each exhale, I want you to name an accomplishment or something awesome about yourself. You're going to continue with this breath pattern until you settle upon a mantra, such as, I am the shit. Keep it simple, you guys. Sacred syllables, 10 syllables or less. Return to this mantra when you're getting ready or when you're with the actual parents. I want you to very deliberately get dressed and do your makeup for this big encounter while also reciting that mantra. Very simple, but it works. It works. It gets your mind shifted into what it needs to be energetically to deal with it. Level up love. I think we only have a few left, you guys. I hope so, because holy cow, man, I need another sippy here. Thank God it's coffee and not wine. I'd probably be intoxicated by the end of one of these. All right, so level up love. You're going to need 2 white candles, 1 red candle, an object that is sacred to your relationship. The best time for this, the waxing moon. Now, this spell uses 3 candles, 1 for you, 1 for your partner, and 1 to represent the relationship or your combined energies. I often refer to that in readings as your energetic bridge. And now it's going to be complete with a guided reflection to ensure the time is right. I want you to use this spell when you want to take your relationship to the next level, like when you're becoming official or moving in together, blah, blah, blah. Now sit down somewhere quiet and comfortable and keep your 3 candles in front of you. Pick up the white candle. This represents you, what you love about yourself. Close your eyes, hold the candle, infuse it with self love, gas yourself up, go hard, compliment yourself so much it feels over the top. Now, pick up the other white candle. This is your partner. What do you love about them? Think about everything from sexual pleasure to personality traits and do not hold back. Next, pick up the third red candle. As you do, think about what you create together. When 2 people are in a relationship, a third being is created. I often refer to that as the energetic bridge. What is yours like? How do you learn from one another? How do you turn each other on? How do you grow from your different challenges? These are all things you need to ask and think about. Now, place the red candle at the top of your altar and the 2 white candles below to form a triangle. Now, in the middle of the triangle, I want you to place your sacred object that reminds you of your relationship. It could be a piece of jewelry they bought you. It could be a shell he, picked up on the seashore when you were going for a walk one day that you've kept. It could be anything. I want you to light the candles, and when they are finished burning, the spell is complete. Very simple, right, you guys? And simple, but very energetic. All right, this one is called Love Necromancy. It brings relationships back to life. And once again, my face is in the way. Oh my goodness. All right. So you're going to need fresh ginger, red felt, a black Sharpie, scissors, needle and thread, cotton balls, salt, rosemary, hair or other remnants of you and your partner, a red candle, and red ribbon. So this one's a little bit more involved. Best time to do this one, the new moon. Okay, so you're going to invoke this spell, which uses dolls when a relationship is hurt by negative outside sources, forces, sourcing, and in desperate need of repair and restoration. So number 1, before you begin the spell, I want you to eat a small sliver of fresh ginger. This adds heat to your workings, okay? Number 2, I want you to stack 2 pieces of red felt on top of one another. Draw 2 human shapes. Make them thick and not too narrow so they're easier to sew. Draw on any, defining characteristics using a Sharpie. You can also put on your names, your zodiac symbols of you and your partner both. You can do whatever you want here. Next, I want you to cut out the 2 human shapes through 2 pieces of felt so you have 4 pieces total. I want you to stitch 2 sides up together, leaving the heads open. I want you to fill them up gently with cotton balls, add a pinch of salt, add a pinch of rosemary to each, add a slice of ginger. If you're using hair or other bodily identifications, add those and sew up the heads of the dolls. Now, on your altar or wherever you're working, create a circle of salt wide enough to contain both these dolls, and then place a red candle at the top of the circle and light it. You're going to place the dolls on top of one another and wrap them up with that red ribbon until they are comfortably attached. I want you to pass these dolls lightly over the candle far enough away so they don't catch fire. But I want you to chant while you do this. Ribbons entwine your heart to mine. Our love aligns with the protection of the divine. Now, you can change that. Again, I'm using sacred words, sacred syllables, in terms of Tara mantra, but you can change this if you want. Place below the candle in the middle of the salt circle the dolls, practicing fire safety and snuffing the candle out when you leave your home. You want to keep the dolls here really until the candle is finished burning completely. So if you have to do that in a few sessions, take a few sessions. Now, following up with this, you need to have a conversation with your partner about what happened. Was it work? Was it family? Was it attraction to another person that caused the problem? Can it be repaired? Do you need time apart? Do you need to have more sex? Do you need to consider maybe opening up your relationship to other people, seeing other people? As the spell is working, you do need to make a concerted adult effort to communicate with your partner and address how to improve and protect the relationship. So now when the candle is finally done, whether you do it in one session or several, you can discard the dolls. It's okay to just throw them out. The magic is done. They're only felt and craft supplies now, so don't feel like you have to hold on to them. I like this one. All right, move past the 3 month mark. All right, so you're going to need stamina to deal with sexual frustration for this one, you guys. The best time to cast the full or waxing moon. All right. Around 3 months is usually the time when the new relationship endorphins subside and the romance fizzles out or gets more serious. So you're going to use sex magic with your partner to continue the hot sex with mutual desire for something long term. Now, number one, so you're in a new relationship and you want to make sure it turns into a long term one. You're going to use sex magic for that. Number two, you are not going to masturbate or have an orgasm for 1 week. Now you can do it. Your suffering is your sacrifice to the love gods. It's an offering, okay? Number three, during this time, you're going to meditate daily. Now, I said this before, you have to master the power of visualization. Daily meditation is a great way to sharpen visualization and psychic abilities. Now while you're doing this meditation, what do you want? Is it an image of you, happily enjoying dinner together, having sex, getting married, going on vacation? I want you to pick your happy future and visualize it in all of its details. Every day you're doing this for that week. Now, after the week of sacrificial orgasm denial has concluded, I get kind of funny in these. You can tell I was getting tired when I was doing these last few. Get ready to have sex, and if you have trouble orgasming, don't worry. Your sacred sexual energy is more than enough. Sometimes if you haven't had intercourse or, masturbated in a long time, it can be difficult to reach climax. Now, number five, make love to your partner, be wholly present. That week without orgasm rebuilt sexual tension, which unfortunately, it does take a bit of a nosedive after the early days of a relationship, right? So it's good to rebuild that tension. Six, when you do climax, when you orgasm, pull up that visualization that you had for that week. I want you to see it clear as day because, at the point of orgasm, you release so much energy, like you could manifest anything seriously. So you want that to be what you're kicking out of your mind when you orgasm. Very powerful stuff. And that was it for today. Oh my God, I feel like I went on forever. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I tried to keep it simple. I tried to keep them very basic, very easy. I kept it potatoes more so than meat because I've given you guys lots of meat these last, 5, 6 months. You really needed your helping of potatoes. I get that. Next month, I'll do another helping of potatoes similar to this. I really hope you guys you can incorporate some of these into your practice. I want to thank you all for your continued support on Patreon. I love creating these. I love teaching. I love like interacting with people where we're learning so much from each other. And so your support as being a subscriber does really help me to do this, and I appreciate that. As always, if you guys have any questions, any follow-up remarks, feedback, anything, do not ever hesitate to reach out to me. Other than that, stay magical.